Hello comics fans. Today I have a good one for you. I'm going to talk to you about a comic series that was first censored, then it was cancelled, and now it's forgotten. That's a really good definition of a hidden gem. In fact, it's so hidden that if you want to Google it with the words wake and comics, you probably won't find it. Try to find it from YouTube and you probably won't see it. You will get a result though. You will get another comics called Wake by Snyder. I have not read that one, so I can't comment on that, but it's not this one. What is Wake? First of all, it's European. The original publisher, Delcourt, is a French company, and both the writer and the artist, the creators here, they are French. Writer is Jean David Morvan, and the artist is Philippe Pouget. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing them correctly, but it's better that you look at the names. You will probably need them if you Google this series to find this Wake and not the Scott Snyder Wake. Also, another thing working against this Wake is the fact that its original name was not Wake. It was originally published under Sillage or Sillage. I don't know how to pronounce that either. This is a Finnish version and we pronounce it Sillage. Wake though is a direct translation of the word Sillage. But because this particular English version was discontinued quickly, it kind of vanished to the further reaches of internet. Let's take a closer look inside the actual albums, look at the art, talk about the censorship, and also we have to go through the peculiar way they were published in English. Oh, almost forgot to mention, for me this has been a weird experience in European comics because Wake taught me to like manga, and there's a reason for that, and we'll take a closer look of that detail too. Let's go through all the albums, flip through them, look at some of the panels, and I will talk about the whole censorship, discontinuation, and whole the funny way it was published as we go along. First album of the series is called Fire and Ash, and this is already where the problem started with NBM. They had to censor the protagonist, this girl, she's called Navee. They had to censor her character and draw this black bar over her chest, because she's basically topless the whole series and she's in almost every page. So they had to decide, well, they could have decided not to publish this at all, or they could have asked the artist to draw all the panels again, which means basically drawing the whole album again. So they went for the third option, and I guess they hired some guy just to draw black bar over her breast, and that was the solution. In reality, Navee has these white tattoos on her body in different places, and she has a tattoo right where this black bar is, but I guess that was not enough for the American market where it was targeted. The original first Wake in France, the original series started in 98, and NBN published this first volume in 2000 in English. So yeah, my hat's off for them to going through all the trouble, even if their market demands stuff like this. So without that effort, I would not have been able to enjoy myself of these comics. But I don't know what it does in American market, if you have a censorship like this, and if they consider this type of thing nudity, I don't know what it does to the shelf space and how the albums are displayed in the stores and so on. I mean, if you look at the cover, the European style is usually a bit cartoonish at first glance. So it might give you an idea that this is for children. But this is very much not for children. Just like my previous video where I talked about Orbital series, Wake, although it looks cartoonish, this is not for children. It has a lot of graphic violence. I mean, really brutal stuff. And this very small nudity is the least issues in my opinion. And for me, this is a bit weird. But as I said, without NBM, I could not have been reading any of this. So, because I can understand the French language. The whole Wake saga starts from this jungle planet where Navee lives. She lives there alone. She is a survivor of a crashed spaceship, and she has never seen any other humans or aliens, and she thinks she's the only person in the world. She has a friend, this kind of tiger-looking cat, and one day to her planet lands this massive spaceship and kind of just buries itself to the ground. And from the spaceship comes this alien, and basically what this whole album is about, this alien race wants to take over the planet and transform it, or hottaform it as they call it, which means heating up the planet so hot that every original living thing in it will die. And looking at Navee, it's easy to make the comparison to Tarzan. And this was one of the reasons why the creators decided to make the protagonist female. Here we can see a little bit cartoonish style, but still very clear. Lots of details, lots of colors, and they change dramatically according to the scene. And because this is basically aliens versus Navee in jungle, the whole book jumps from between these high-tech sci-fi scenes and the jungle scene. And here is what I was referring to, the manga thing. One of the things I used to not like manga at all. I didn't like the visual vocabulary that manga had, and one of them was these kind of whoosh lines. This was, I think, the least of those visual things that bothered me, but it's one of those. Now I've learned to like them, but and in fact, looking back now, I don't realize what was bothering about them. And this is also one thing that reminds me of manga, you know, the way they convey speed, so that the scenery is bending, even though there is no these lines that show that they are going fast. You kind of see it from the picture because the whole scene is bending. It's also one of the kind of visual things that I link to manga. And then it's back to Tarzan-like thing. Navee is a great character. She is feisty, she has a really bad temper. I mean, she gets into a lot of troubles. She's very unpredictable even to herself in many situations. And this shows how Puget is great at doing big panoramas. There is this aliens have already built their city this large, and they have started to form the planet, so it's starting to die around the city, heating up, and the whole panel is actually the whole size of the whole spread, and then they have just these smaller panels here to tell story in different places. Here with the alien side, and here with what Navee is going through on her crashed survival ship. I have to say that reading the first volume, I was kind of 50-50 what I think about this, but the last 2 pages kind of revealed to me that I've been played as a reader, and this was just the beginning, just the prelude, and there is something much bigger coming, and it's probably going to be that space opera size that I like. But I am going to show you part of the last page, because this tells you what this wake is about, or Sillage as it was originally called. This massive convoy, this is the wake. And this was one of the ideas of the creators. They wanted to do this massive convoy that keeps eternally traveling through space, leaving jump gates to places that they visited, and meeting new planet societies, maybe revisiting them later. And it's obvious that when you look at this first time, if you are familiar with Battlestar Galactica, that was the first thing I thought, and I'm a big fan of that. So both the original and the remake, which by the way was better than the original. But the Morvan and Bouquet, they decided to draw the ships more organic looking, so that you wouldn't have that direct comparison to the more blocky looking ships of the Battlestar Galactica. But it's hard not to make the comparison when you see it, although this is way more massive, the whole convoy. Second album is called Private Collection, and this is more about life inside that wake, that convoy of spaceships. And the way they build the story is that all the races in convoy are somehow psychic, or they have telepathic talents, or they are sensitive to psychic probing and so on. So all the races are actually rated based on how powerful they are with their psychic abilities. But the thing about Navee is that she doesn't send any signals out or receive any. She's like a blank spot in those psychics universe, and that makes her really valuable to Wake. So that's where the politics starts. All the power players, they want piece of her, and Wake in the end they hire her as an agent because she's able to do all kinds of work that other species couldn't do. She can infiltrate any place because she can't be detected, and this here is part of her training mission, so to speak. It just shows how they train her in different situations and how her temper and attitude gets her in the problem, because she rarely does as is told. All kinds of politicians come in and just try to get their way close to the Navee's friendship, and they just try to see what they can get out of her, what kind of advantages. And Navee's problem is that she is trying to find another humans or other humans, because she is the only human in the whole Wake, and she wonders why there aren't any where they are. So she feels alone, and in this album she is trying to find friends or someone who would kind of want or accept her as what she is, rather than she doesn't like that everybody wants something value of her. Very colorful drawings, super detailed, and this is where the album size comes to play. Let's see if we compare this to this is the European album size, and even though it was published in USA, they made it in album format, and I think that's a cool thing. If we compare it to the basic trade paperback, there's a big difference. And I think Bouquet, as an artist, he knows that he is drawing for this type of format. He's doing a European comic which are published in albums, so he draws a lot of details into his panels. So his work needs more space, but it also makes it look better. There's more Space Armada going, and as you can see, there is so much details even in one panel. You can just stop and stare and come back later to figure out if you missed something, like the figures here in the front fixing this spaceship. Then there are some of the ships are even living beings, and they inhabit quite different looking races. This is the third volume, Gearing Up, and actually I have to mention about the snow in the cover. I think this is really well drawn. I don't usually even stop to think about snow in comics, because they usually just a white blanket, kind of just an effect that you get it that it's snow. But here, the way it's drawn tells me immediately that it's certain type of damp, a little bit wet snow, that the air has been a bit warmer than the freezing point of water. Maybe it's, I'm from Finland, the land of the ice and snow, and we have at least 100 different words for different type of snow. There's a different word for wet or dry snow, or snow that is falling, and the way it is falling, or if it's kind of being collected certain way on the branches of the trees. Lots of different names that describe what the snow is about and where is it. Maybe that's just my thing, but this is one of the rare places where my attention is drawn to the snow, drawn snow in the comics. This third volume is steampunk, and it also underlines how Morvan is using his idea of this massive space convoy moving through the space. Basically, he can come up with any type of story he wants, although it's within the same space opera. It's the convoy always coming to new planet, and he can make anything he wants out of it. Now, this particular planet that they meet is less advanced technologically, and they don't want to reveal themselves yet because they are not advanced enough. But there's something happening there that requires Wake's attention, so they send Navee to infiltrate the world and investigate what's going on. And there's a cool panel, lots of details. This type of panels require big pages. One of the things why, for me, the album format is the thing. You always get the deluxe size, even if it's just one story. Here Navee is getting her disguise, but the disguise is actually a living creature that covers her body. These are the jump gates that Wake leaves behind so that they can always get back to areas that they have previously visited. So this is a kind of infiltration story and a mystery also. Here's some action, and I think this also shows, at least to my eye, the manga flavor. As I told you, I learned to love manga through this. I didn't like manga before, but it's like the way Bouquet is doing it. I can see that this is a European comic, the way the characters are drawn, the way the world is drawn. But he adds the manga into it, like infuses it. It's like a spice. It's like you're eating a pizza but you're tasting a hamburger. You know, you have certain that you know to be something else, but then there's this spice that you immediately know that, okay, this is not usually here. And I've read this series so many times. I love it. I've become accustomed to this, and it was my Trojan horse or gateway into manga, because I started to like this visual language they use, and it opened to me a complete new world, which is almost scary because there's so much stuff in manga, and I don't know if I have enough money or floor shelf space for that, but that's another story. I don't want to show too much of the end, because this particular story has a plot point at the end that makes Navee and actually reader to think like, what is going on? And that ties into that larger theme running behind these adventures. As this is space opera, there are always these local adventures and dangers that the protagonist has to deal with, but then also in the background you have the politics, scheming, and this weird sense of things not being right and danger. I like that about space opera, that it usually works on so many levels if it's done well. But so I won't show you the end. Maybe this panel is the good place to stop. Again, very nicely done, super detailed. Fourth album is the moment when signs of things to come started to happen, although at first I thought that this was a positive sign. You see, this album has actually 2 volumes. It's thicker, and it has 2 basic albums in one. The fourth is called The Sign of Demons, and the 5th volume is with some alien language, could mean maybe chicken soup or something. But so I thought, you know, this is cool. I'm going to get even more in one package from now on. But as the future showed, that this was actually a very bad sign for the future of Wake in NBM. The first story is The Sign of Demons, and here again you can see the thing I mentioned about the whole manga thing, these whoosh lines, and the way the speed is depicted by bending the scene, and it creates this sense of speed or urgency. Very detailed panels again. There's so much little details. If you just keep looking, you find these, someone peeing there in the waterfall. super colorful. And this particular story is like medieval meets fantasy, hack and slash, sandals and swords. Again, more when using the wake, or the convoy card, moving the adventure to a kind of place where they can make a story that is unlike anything before. Otherwise, this would be a completely other subcategory of science fiction. Actually, this wouldn't be even a science fiction; it would be fantasy. And Puhe does a lot of these perspective shots that seems to go on forever. And if you look at the panel layouts, they rarely are even with the page. Like this long panel. It's a great panel, and then you have all the panels are different sizes, and then there are even spaces where there's nothing in them, as if they were kind of there was nothing to fit there. But they use this in almost every page, so it's not a strict grid system, and it's going on every page. There's one panel here I want to show you before I jump to the next story. Again, insane amount of details. Where is it? There we go. Like this type of panels. And I often just stop here and try to see if I can spot something that I haven't spotted before. I have no idea how long it takes to draw this type of panels. And again, if you look at the panels in general, they are just kind of laid out in quite loose way. It looks like they are put wherever they fit. And then among these big panels you have this one long panel telling that they're moving fast in a spaceship. Kind of neat techniques. Let's jump to the 5th album, which was that alien language named. This is pretty grim story. It starts with a suicide bombing on a local train, and it's basically a story of this race that is used and abused within the wake convoy as a cheap labor, but no one is interested of how they are doing. They are dying by the hundreds to a disease that could be cured, but many political instances think that it would be bad for business if they would help them out, although they are willing to use them as a cheap labor. So this is not a feel-good story, and this also starts to show that Morvan and Puke, they are not afraid to put Navee as the protagonist into into situations where even her morals could be questionable, or she could be seen as a naive, and that makes me like the series even more. It just makes it feel more real, I guess. This is one of my favorite spreads. It's basically a static shot of this one spaceship here, this brown spaceship. And the panels are cut out as if the top has been removed. And you can see inside that ship. But they are also used as the panels that kind of bring the story forward, and characters move here inside it. So but they're basically in the same frame all the time, although they are in these separate smaller frames. I haven't seen this before. It's quite unique, and I think this is talent, if something. And the endings are never the kind of happy-go-lucky that might be in some TV series. It feels real, and the endings are many times a mixed bag. Maybe something good happens, but usually also something bad happens. And you don't necessarily leave the story feeling 100% happy. And to me, that's a good sign. That's a sign of good writing. Then we jump to the last volume, and this is where the obvious is starting to show. Look at the size. It's still 2 volumes in one album, but I mean, look at the size of this. Let's compare it. Let's compare it to the. If you look at the trade paperback, it's almost the same size as this one. And I think what happened here is that the sales were not going the way NBN wanted. So here they started adding more content to one volume. And if that didn't work, they even tried to, maybe this was a cheaper way to do it, to make it smaller. Or it could be that the big album format wasn't to US readers' liking. You know, they are quite used to this trade paperback size, with how all the DC and Marvel do the superhero stories. So this might be just a thing for them, and maybe they brought this down to that size. I don't know, something like that. So it could be a sign of just trying to cut the losses, or just trying to adjust to the demand. I would think that now, because this the last album was released in 2005. That's 16, 17 years ago. That's a long time ago. That's one generation. So I would think that now the album size is also okay for the US market, as so many companies, even Marvel and DC, are releasing their deluxe and library editions, and everybody's liking those big formats, and they would buy them if they would have money. But with albums, they all, you know, if a series is released in album format, you always get the deluxe size. You always get the big pictures that really bring out the art. So this is a crime against humanity. And also the timing is quite bad for this, because this artifice particularly would benefit a lot from larger panels. Look at this. You have these small panels, and you can see that there is insane amount of detail. All these rubbles and ruins are drawn with a lot of effort, and like a cityscape like this. By the way, that particular reddish brown always brings to my mind Blueberry, the Western series. It uses that color a lot. I like that color scheme. But so they shrank down the panels, and I don't think that, you know, if Puget would known that his drawings would be in this small format, I don't think he would have drawn so much detail here. But of course the originals were much bigger. They were this regular album size, so that's where he was aiming for. But it makes the details really, really small. This is also a quite funny story. It's kind of it's story of a world that has been in war continuously for centuries, many centuries, and they are kind of like World War II level, with a little bit mixed with some mecha style. But their opponent, which is kind of a mystery in the beginning, they have much more advanced technology. And this has also a lot of humor, although it's kind of brutal and bloody story. They make fun of Navee in this, so that the aliens in this planet, they are half of her size, and they look like this. The men look like this, and they all think that Navee is the ugliest thing they have ever seen. They actually think that she is a victim of some burning accident or something, because she doesn't have whiskers, the mustaches. So they pity her a lot and tell her that actually Navee gets quite tired of hearing how ugly she is in here. So it's unfortunate that the NBM decided to go smaller in this particular story. And this also jumps between this war-torn cityscape and really hi-fi looking sci-fi technology. There's kind of two storylines going there. Let's jump into the last album. It's called Maximum Insecurity. This is my favorite story of them all. And it tells the story of a prison break in this prison ship. Navee is on her way to meet her friend who is a prisoner here. And just before she arrives, all the power is shut down and the prisoners can escape. And they are all basically murderers, and they are also, many of them are like bioweapons, like living weapons, and really, really dangerous. You can enjoy all of these albums no matter which volume you get your hands to first. It's still enjoyable, though you will see that there is this bigger story behind everything, and that makes you want to see what happened before. Here is a good example. I'll show you one example of the violence in these books. Here these prisoners, they escape, and because the power is out, they can get rid of these brain dampeners, and so they can't be controlled by the security here. Security, they notice that they don't have the brain dampeners, they take out the guns, and then this praying mantis looking creature attacks. And this page tells you a lot. It just goes past this card and slices head, fingers, even the weapon in half. So the other guard starts shooting. The creature is already on top of him, and he is sliced into four pieces. After which this green alien pulls out the gun and starts to shoot, only to notice a second later that he doesn't have hands anymore. And as he has another pair of hands which he's using to trying to dampen the blood bumping out from the other stumps. And while that happens, the big brute comes and just basically makes mashed potato out of his head. The violence in general is not used as a gimmick. It's violent here because it's a prison break and they are all murderers. They are all living weapons basically. So that just fits the storyline. But it's also my favorite
favorite of this all. It shows these creatures fighting with their strange biology, what kind of things they have, and it's quite inventive. Navee is breaking into the ship because she knows that her friend is in danger, and it's really bloody adventure. But that's it. I won't show you again all of it. In case you're interested, you have to find these because it's, as I said, they are long gone. And as this might be the only video on YouTube about the whole series, I don't mind about it being long, so I keep on talking because I'll show you this one. In Finland they started to print this series later, and they brought it out with the original name, Sillage, or Sillage as we pronounce it here. So I got the 8th part, 9th part, and the 10th part. So it went 3 volumes further than NBM, and then discontinued. In Finland that's not unusual because we are such a small market. And I didn't start buying this in the beginning at all because I thought it was going to be discontinued anyway. But they went all the way to 10 albums, and so I got 3 more volumes, which is great news. And after I got these 3, I bought the whatever I could find of the old the original ones. I have the first one. This is these are also the original French covers that they do in Finland. This is published by Egmont. So this is volume 1. This is the volume 2, the private collection. Third one is Gearing Up with the original cover. I don't know why they changed the cover in USA. Maybe it was just they thought they were better fitting for the audience. Yeah, the 4th album in Finnish I still haven't found it. This is the 5th one with that alien language name. And then I'm missing the 6th volume also. But I have my favorite, the prison story here. The 8th volume is called Human Nature, and I was happy when I saw, okay, now there's a 8th volume, and I went right away and bought it. But this was the worst of the 10 I read as a story. It delves deeper into the humans and humanity, and for some reason the writing doesn't work that well here as well as in others. It's not a bad one, it's just my least favorite. And it also adds these little bits and pieces to the longer story arc, the space opera part of the story. So that makes you know a little bit more about Navee. But then the 9th one that came out was one of my favorites, so everything was okay again. And this particular story puts Navee in a very tight spot morally. She has to make decisions that are really hard, and after this it even puts the reader in a hard position. Like, do you agree the stuff she's doing? And that again reminded me how good the writing was. Oh, by the way, these are the openings in these formats. There's one page I wanted to show here. It's just showing actually a few of them. Like, how cool is that? And then panels like this. You need a bigger format to do this. And I'm thinking, could it be now time for someone to try to do this again. I don't know how the publishing rights work or how they are bought or sold, but this came out, the last one came out, what, 16, 17 years ago. It's one generation ago, so they are nowhere anymore. You really have to hunt for these. And I think if this was the issue, that the size, I can't see it being the issue anymore, as so many, even in USA, the DC Marvel, they are releasing these deluxe formats or library editions that are big, that they are meant to be big to enhance the visual. So this album size cannot be any more problem, even for American audience, I think, because well, I grew up with this format, so I'm a big fan, because it, even if you buy, you don't have to buy a deluxe or something, they always are deluxe. So I realize now how pampered I've been all my life with this, getting these bigger format albums since my childhood. But yeah, I really wish someone would redo this and go all the way, because I think the series, the Sillage series, is still going. There are at least 20 albums out in France, and if I'm correct, there is at least one more coming. And then there are spin-off also, actually 2 spin-offs. There's Chronicles of Sillage, or was it Chronicles of Navee, which are done by different artists but in the same world, separate stories. And then there is a series called Navee, which is more cartoonish, that tells about her childhood when she was growing up in the jungle. So there's a huge world waiting for someone to do this. So I even thought of buying the French ones and putting some blank paper on these speech bubbles and translating myself. I actually took some panels from internet that I found in France and tried to do it, but I found that language to be way over my head, so I gave up on that. But I'm pretty desperate to see the rest of the series, so I'm hoping someone will get this. So that's it. I'm pretty sure this will be a long video, but as I said, if it's the only video ever to be made of this forgotten in English series, that would definitely deserve the whole run, I'm okay with having longer video. Let it be there, and hope you enjoyed this, and see you in the next one.